Dear students, in this lecture we are going to discuss about a concept in database which is known as the primary key, or technically it is a keys in database. So before that, last class we discussed about certain things or certain topics, or for understanding the concept of primary key or secondary key or any key in database, you have to know about these fundamental things in a database. First thing, database. Second thing, table, field and record. So previously, or you should have a prior knowledge about these topics. So when it comes to the topic of computer science database, database is a topic in which the data or informations are stored, collected and preserved in an organized manner. When it comes to the computer database, there is a thing that all the data, all the informations are storing in a database in the concept of tables. So if you want to store an information, consider this particular table known as student. So student is storing the information of certain students with student name, ID, grade, gender, date of birth and bus transport, etc. There are a lot of informations. So when we are considering a database table, you can see that a table is consisting of columns and rows. A table is consisting of columns and table is consisting of row. A column is otherwise known as field. A column is otherwise known as field and a row is otherwise known as records. So these are the records or rows in a table and these are the columns in a table. So in a computer science database, the data are stored in the format of a table and a table consists of rows and columns. So now we are moving towards our topic. Before that, we are having a small activity. There are three group activities. The group number one has to identify which document we have to submit for booking an airline ticket. For the second group, here is your task. If you are taking a PCR test in UAE, which document you have to submit to get the PCR test in UAE? Third group, if you are a student, if you are a university student or if you are a school student, if you are entering towards your campus, which document or which card you are holding. So three activities for three different groups. Take your time. So I think for the group number one, most probably you get the answer of passport is a document for booking a ticket. Emirates ID is the document which you are using in UAE for taking a PCR or any other government related operations. And third one, for the school students or university students, you will have a school ID or a student ID card. Got it? Now, if you got this idea, we are going towards our topic, primary key. So primary key is a concept in database. We are going to analyze the idea of primary key and how these primaries can help you for identifying a data in a database. That's what we are going to discuss. And the keywords in this topic is database, primary key and composite key. So lesson objective is to analyze the primary key, where we are using this primary key and how we can select a primary key in a database. So next thing, after completing this particular topic, you will be able to recognize a primary key from a table and you will be differentiate a unique value in a table and you can build your own database based upon these informations. So now we are moving towards the topic. Before going towards the concept of primary key, what is the purpose of a key? The purpose of a key is to unlock something or to lock something. Got it? In the similar way, a primary key in a database is a unique identity in a table. It is a unique identity in a table to identify each row or record. Previously we discussed that the informations are stored in computer science based upon the tables and the tables are having columns and rows. For identifying a record, we are using the concept of primary key. It is a unique key for identifying a record. Now, when it comes to the primary key, these are the certain factors. First thing, we already mentioned that a primary key is a unique value. Then, this unique value means that value cannot be repeated. It is a unique number, it cannot be repeated. At the same time, this value should not be a null value. It shouldn't be an empty value. If we are mentioning a particular document as a primary key, that field should have a value. Should have a value. That means it cannot be a null value. And in a table, you can mention only one primary key. In a table, you will have only one primary key. So these are the three important points when we are considering a primary key. The primary key must be a unique value. It should not be a null value. And third one table should have one primary key. Now back to our example, we discussed about three of these documents, right? So what are the unique features of these three individual ID cards? First one is the passport, second one is the Emirates ID, third one is the school ID. If we are observing these documents, you can see that in the case of a passport, you will be having a unique passport number. That passport number is a unique one. You only have a number for your passport. That number is not repeating for someone else. And in the case of Emirate ID also, you will be having a unique number. And in the case of a student ID card, a school ID or a university ID card, you will be having a unique ID. This means that these values can be assigned as a primary key in a table. Got it? So, when we are considering a table, let us consider this table. This table is having 4 independent columns. Columns are otherwise known as field. And these are having 4 independent rows. These rows are having records or information of a particular person. And identify the primary key from this column data. Here we are having a roll number, name, age, and a GPA value. We already mentioned that a primary key is a value which is a unique value. When we are considering the field of name, 2 or 3 or some other students have same names. So name can't be taken as a primary key. When it comes to the age group or students in the same classroom may have the same age. So age also we can't consider this as a primary key. When it comes to the GPA, it can also be repeated for many number of students. But when it comes to the candidate code or roll number, this value is a unique value. So in this case, we can consider the roll number as a primary key. So this is how we are identifying a value to select it as a primary key. So primary key is a value which shouldn't be a null value. It should have a unique number, and this value couldn't repeat for more than one person. That's why it's called unique value. So now consider an example or different examples. If you are considering a table, a student ID, like your ID card, your student ID is itself a primary key. Or if you are considering an employee ID, if you are a working person, if you are considering an ID of an employee, that employee ID can also be considered as a primary key. Got it? Now here comes the next question. Observe this table and identify which field we can choose as a primary key. If I am considering the field of grade, many students are having the same grade. Or if I am considering the field of gender, many fields are having the same gender. That means these two fields can't be chosen as a primary key. Or if you are considering DOB, date of birth field, 1 or 2 or more students may have the same date of birth, may have. That means DOB can't also be chosen as a primary key. If you are considering the student name, there is a possibility for repeating the student name, especially. And here comes the choice. You can choose the reference number or ID field as a primary key. So reference number is a random number, but ID value is a unique value. So you can either choose reference number or you can choose ID. But in the case of reference number, observe this table. This reference number 4, reference number is 4, is repeating for 2 times. So this value can't be chosen as a primary key. Or if you are observing this number 3 is also repeating. That means reference number is not a unique value, it is repeating. So you can avoid this field, and ID number is a field which is not repeating. That means ID can be chosen as a primary key in this case. So there is the next question. Can age, gender or date of birth or bus transport can be a primary key? We already discussed that. These fields can repeat the value, so these are not considered as a primary key. So there comes the AFL part for you. Here comes 3 different group analysis work. The table number 1 is for the group number 1, and table number 2 is for group 2, and table number 3 is for group number 3. Observe this table, identify the number of fields, identify the number of records, and identify the primary key which we can choose for each of this table. Hope you have done the work. So group number 1, here is your table. The number of fields. The number of field means field comes the column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the number of fields for the group number 1 is 6. I think you got the correct answer. And for the group number 1, the number of records, if you are counting the number of records, you can see 9 different records. And the primary key which can be chosen for this particular table is bell number, which is a unique value. All other values are repeating. So the primary key for the first table is bell number. Hope you understood the concept, right? And if you are considering the second table, consider the second table. Number of columns or number of fields is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there are 6 fields. And number of records, you can count number of records 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's almost 15 records. And if you're considering the primary key, you can consider the primary you can consider the ID as the primary key. And for the last group, the last table, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different fields. And number of rows is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And the primary key is, can we choose creature? No. Can we choose class? No. Can we choose quantity? No. Can we choose ready for release? Because all these fields are repeating. That means for the group number 3, for the table number 3, there is no primary key. So we already mentioned that there is a possibility for getting a unique value in a table. But consider the table number 3, there is no unique value. In this case, what we will do? There comes the next option, composite key. So composite key means if a table is not having a unique value, then you can choose multiple columns to form a key. So if we are considering 2 different columns, you can combine 2 different fields and you can choose a composite key. So this topic we will discuss in our next class. Hope you understood the topic of primary key. We discussed about database and we discussed about primary key and the features of primary key. Thank you, dear students.